Hello, this is David Frothingham, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the Wednesday, June 10th, 2026 issue of the Democrat and Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The lead headline on this morning's Democrat and Chronicle's front page reads, "Ads for GLP-1 drugs flooding the internet. Here's how to know if it's safe to buy them online," by Sujith Ramachandran and Lian Wan Lin. If you watched the Super Bowl in 2026, you likely saw Serena Williams share her weight loss journey on GLP-1 medications in a commercial. Like millions of others around the country, if you've ever considered taking one of these drugs, you probably went online to learn more about where you can get them and how much they cost. Online searches for GLP-1 medications like Ozempic and Wegovy have risen dramatically since 2022. Advertisements like Williams' Super Bowl commercial both reflect and help drive that growing demand. More and more advertisements for weight loss medications are appearing in people's daily lives. These ads can be appealing, intrusive, confusing, or even misleading, and have sparked widespread concerns about inappropriate use and adverse events. But the high cost of GLP-1 medications, combined with the lack of adequate coverage by insurance plans, has helped fuel a booming online market for cheaper alternatives. As health services researchers studying prescription medication safety, we are highly concerned about the risks of online advertisements selling alternative versions of GLP-1 weight loss medications. Not all GLP-1 medications are the same. As of April, the most popular GLP-1 medications approved by the Food and Drug Administration include semaglutide, sold under brand names Wegovy, Ozempic, and Rybelsus; tirzepatide, sold as Mounjaro or Zepbound; and orforglipron, sold as Foundayo. These brand name medications have undergone rigorous clinical trials and extensive FDA evaluation, including review of clinical data, manufacturing processes, and facility inspections to ensure safety, quality, and effectiveness. Many of the GLP-1 drugs advertised on the internet are not the FDA-approved medications, but rather compounded GLP-1 products made in compounding pharmacies. They contain the same active ingredient, semaglutide, tirzepatide, or orforglipron, but add minor but clinically important modifications, such as using a different salt form, adding different inactive ingredients, and varying drug concentrations or dosages. In addition, they may be produced and stored under inconsistent quality standards. Compounding pharmacies are intended to create personalized versions of FDA-approved medications to meet unique patient needs that cannot be met through the mass-produced brand-name medications. However, there is no evidence to suggest that the modifications being made to GLP-1 medications sold by compounding pharmacies meet those criteria. Instead, companies are using compounding pharmacies to bypass the FDA-approved manufacturers and generate profit. In February, the FDA released a report alerting patients and providers about the risks of compounded GLP-1 medications. The report notes the presence of counterfeit Ozempic, the use of non-FDA-approved ingredients such as retatrutide or cagrilintide, and products bypassing regulations by being labeled as not for human consumption. As of July 2024, the most recently issued report, the FDA has received over 1,000 reports of adverse events related to compounded semaglutide and compounded tirzepatide. These include gastrointestinal effects like nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain, as well as fainting, headache, migraine, dehydration, acute pancreatitis, and gallstones. These effects occur because drug concentrations in compound medications can vary significantly, leading to serious dosing errors. Steps to safely obtain GLP-1 medications online. First, if you or someone you know is considering GLP-1 medications for weight management, it's important to know that leading medical organizations have specific recommendations for the use of these drugs. For instance, the American Diabetes Association recommends the use of GLP-1 drugs for weight loss only for those with a body mass index or BMI of at least 30, or among those with a BMI of 27 or greater if they have at least one other condition such as type 2 diabetes, hypertension, or high cholesterol. People with a BMI below 27 need further clinical evidence to determine if GLP-1 medication is appropriate for them. If you or your doctor determine that it is appropriate to seek GLP-1 medications for weight management, it is important to avoid compounded versions of GLP-1 drugs unless your healthcare provider specifically recommends them. But identifying which GLP-1 medications are compounded can be challenging. It is important to carefully examine how the medication is labeled on the website. Websites selling compounded versions of GLP-1 drugs are not allowed to use the FDA-approved brand names of products like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Zepbound. If a product description includes spelling errors or terms such as compounded, generic version, or same active ingredient as brand name, it often indicates that the product is a compounded formulation. When in doubt, try contacting the online retailer and ask if the product is a compounded drug. If you decide to obtain GLP-1 medications online, it is important to choose reliable and transparent sources. The manufacturer of several FDA-approved GLP-1 medications provide official online platforms such as NovoCare and LillyDirect. These allow people to get medication information and transparent pricing and to get the drugs delivered to them at home or to pick them up at a pharmacy. When possible, using these official sources can reduce the risk of encountering misleading advertisements or unverified products. Red flags. Online retailers that offer GLP-1 drugs without requiring a prescription or medical evaluation are illegal and unsafe. Advertising the ease of getting a prescription or only requiring an online form to obtain a prescription is a red flag. As a rule of thumb, patients should always begin their treatment by consulting with their local primary care provider, who can evaluate their complete medical history. It is also important to verify whether the pharmacy associated with the website is properly licensed and compliant with regulatory standards, since many online sellers rely on compounding pharmacies that are based outside the United States or are not appropriately licensed. Therefore, patients should check whether the pharmacy that will ship their medication has a physical address and a telephone number based in the United States. Patients should verify whether the pharmacy is registered on the official FDA database of approved compounded pharmacies and licensed as per the Board of Pharmacy of the state where the pharmacy is physically located. Using pharmacies that are not registered or licensed is highly unsafe and can result in serious adverse effects. If the online retailer does not clearly disclose which pharmacy they are using, you should contact the retailer to confirm this information. Finally, even after you receive your medications, you will need to carefully review the product and its label. This can help determine whether the medication being offered corresponds to an FDA-approved product or a compounded formulation. Products that arrive without proper packaging, labeling, or an expiration date, or have a foreign language on the packaging, may be unsafe or unverified products. The next headline on today's front page reads, City and County to get $300 million from the state. And there's a picture of the Greater Rochester Majority State Delegation announced June 8 investments towards child care, energy, housing, and community spaces. Korea Weaver. The Greater Rochester Majority State Delegation announced June 8th investments that will reduce costs on energy and child care, increase housing construction, and uplift neighborhoods and community spaces. One of the items funded in Governor Kathy Hochul's budget is the Rochester Monroe Transformation Initiative, which will be allocated $300 million. The funding will go toward revitalizing the High Falls District, a universal child care pilot, energy rate hike reforms, and consumer protections, as well as an increase to temporary municipal aid for Rochester. The money is from the state budget that was adopted and approved May 27th and signed by Hochul on May 28th. One of the other investments includes a $2 million capital investment for the redevelopment and expansion of Baden Street's Settlement's main campus. The settlement's mission is to improve the quality of life of adults, children, and families by eliminating the causes of poverty and to reduce negative social problems associated with being poor and disadvantaged. Carol Robertson, Director of Youth and Family Services at Baden Street Settlement, said the street has been an instrumental part of the Northeast Rochester community since 1901. Quote, "These funds will be used to redevelop, modernize, and renovate the entire Baden Street campus. Every single building and every corner of this institute will feel the impact of this investment, ensuring that our physical structures finally match the world-class care provided inside them," Robinson said. Assemblymember Harry Bronson said the budget delivers on the delegation's top priority of taking care of families so that they can afford to live and thrive in every corner of Monroe County. As a delegation, we secured provisions to make Rochester and Monroe County a better place to live, work, and raise a family, Bronson said. Investments that are going directly to our families, our communities, our schools to support safe streets, good public education, lower utility bills, affordable housing, and consumer protections that are the foundation of a strong future. The next headline reads, Eastman Museum to reconsider new photo fee, by Marcia Greenwood. In response to significant community pushback, the George Eastman Museum appears to be reevaluating a policy it announced last week requiring paid reservations costing hundreds of dollars per hour for photo shoots on museum grounds. Quote, "We hear you," reads a June 8th post on the museum's Facebook page. "Photographers have helped tell the story of the George Eastman Museum for generations, and we value the role they play in our community. To support continued dialogue, we will be hosting listening sessions with photographer and community stakeholders. We look forward to hearing perspectives, gathering feedback, and sharing what we learn along the way." The original announcement by George Eastman Museum. On June 1st, the museum at 900 East Avenue stated that professional photography of individuals, couples, or groups on museum grounds is only permitted with prepaid reservations of $400 per hour. It said the same fee applies for non-professional photo shoots of high school prom-goers, graduates, newly engaged couples, etc. The museum noted that its property, which includes 3 historic gardens, is not a public park, and that demands for its use as a backdrop for special occasion photography has grown dramatically. The policy change was necessary because on some days, hundreds of people come to our grounds to take photographs for senior pictures, proms and balls, graduation, engagements, and other special events. Further, many professional photographers who have not made prior arrangements are disrupting visitors' enjoyments of the property. Shooting inside the Colonial Revival Mansion requires a prepaid reservation of $600 per hour. Pushback on social media. On social media, public reaction has been swift and overwhelmingly negative. Commenters say the fees are unreasonably high and point out that George Eastman's life work made photography, once a pastime only of elites, affordable for everyday people. A museum representative said the museum is pulling together plans for the listening sessions and already has been in touch with some of the members of the local photography community. Meanwhile, the museum visitors are welcome to take personal snapshots on property at no cost, as long as they don't require setups that disrupt other visitors' experiences. Next headline in today's front section reads, Big Boy number 4014 steams its way across the state. Train will stop at Hornell Erie Depot Museum, by Neil Simon. And there's a picture of the Big Boy number 4014 seen in Lebanon at the Lebanon City Station. The countdown is on for the Hornell arrival of the world's largest steam locomotive. Union Pacific's famed Big Boy number 4014 will make a whistle stop at the Maple City on Thursday, June 11th, as part of its historic coast-to-coast tour celebrating America's 250th anniversary. The train is scheduled to roll into the city at 2 p.m., where it will stop at the shrine to Hornell's colorful rail history, the Hornell Erie Depot Museum on Loder Street. Union Pacific is expecting more than 1 million people to view the historic locomotive in person during its coast-to-coast tour. Local officials are preparing for large crowds of train enthusiasts to visit the city and line favorable viewing locations along the train's route from Letchworth State Park to the city of Hornell. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. New York State will get a front row look at number 4014, which was built in Schenectady to haul heavy equipment during World War II and is the only one of 8 remaining big boys still operating. According to Union Pacific, the big boy will depart Buffalo at 9 a.m. on June 11th and reach the North Main Street crossing in Silver Springs, New York at 11:45 a.m. After departing from Silver Springs at noon, Big Boy will pass through Letchworth State Park in Castile, crossing the park's Genesee River Arch Bridge at 12:20 p.m. Spectators planning to view the locomotive from a vantage point in the park will be charged $10 per car admission fee to enter Letchworth. Big Boy rolls from Letchworth to Hornell, passing by Burns, Hornellsville, and Arkport before arriving at the Erie Depot Museum at 2 p.m. The train is scheduled to spend 30 minutes at the Hornell Depot before continuing its journey at 2:30 p.m. bound for Sayre, Pennsylvania. Track Big Boy's progress here in real time. up.com/about us /history/steam/track. Another Big Boy stop in the Southern Tier, June 12th. A stop at Owego at an old train station, now the Turn Golf Simulator, will follow on June 12th. The stop will be accessible to the public, and the Village of Owego Mayor Mark Barata said the village is expecting a pretty big crowd. The train is expected to arrive at 53 South Depot Street in Owego by 10:45 a.m. and depart at 11:15 a.m. There is also an exclusive Norfolk Southern stop planned for the Binghamton area employees on June 12th, but that is not accessible to the public. The train will be departing from the Binghamton area on June 13th at 7:30 a.m., then heading toward Nicholson, Pennsylvania for the next stop on the tour. How to safely and legally watch Big Boy locomotive pass by. Union Pacific requires spectators to stand back at least 25 feet or more from the tracks to avoid debris and steam or being hit by the train itself. The same rule applies to drones. They must be at least 25 feet from the train tracks. Union Pacific also noted that railroad tracks, trestles, yards, and right-of-way are private property, and they asked spectators to please not trespass. Why Big Boy's Hornell whistle stop just feels right. It seems fitting that Big Boy is making a whistle stop tour in Hornell. The Erie Railroad helped transform the sleepy backwater to a bustling rail town in the middle of the 19th century. When the Erie Railroad main line was completed in 1851, Hornellsville was chosen as a primary repair and maintenance center for the entire Erie line, according to Steuben County Historical Society. That was the beginning of a symbiotic relationship between the railroad and Hornell that would endure for more than 100 years. The Erie operation was a very busy place, according to the Historical Society, with activity going on around the clock. In May, the State Assembly adopted a resolution commemorating the 175th anniversary of the inaugural trip of the Erie Railroad through Hornell. The resolution chronicles the rail industry's impact on Hornell's economy and growth. Prior to the arrival of the Erie Railroad, the population of Hornellsville stood at approximately 700 residents in 1851. Within a year, the population surged to 1,841, demonstrating the transformative economic and social influence of rail transportation on the community. By 1877, the Erie Railroad employed approximately 800 individuals in Hornell, and by 1940, the city's population had grown to 15,649 residents, illustrating the central role the railroad industry played in shaping the identity and development of the region. The city of Hornell established the Erie Depot Museum in 2005 to preserve the history and mementos of the Hornell area railroad industry. With the presence of Alstom, Hornell continues to play a pivotal role in the modern-day rail industry. Alstom's large Hornell workforce produces a variety of rail cars and propulsion systems, including the high-profile Acela high-speed cars for Amtrak. Big Boy's return to the East reflects shared legacy. The eastern leg of the tour, Big Boy onto Norfolk Southern tracks, will with more than 50 whistle stops and display days across 8 cities. During the eastern section of the tour, Big Boy will be accompanied by Norfolk Southern commemorative locomotives, as well as a historical passenger car from Norfolk Southern's heritage fleet, according to Union Pacific. Indeed, one of the highlights of the tour are the histories of Union Pacific in the west and Norfolk Southern and its predecessors in the east, reflecting the shared legacy of American railroads serving as the backbone of the country's economic growth. Railroads helped build this nation by connecting people, communities, and commerce, work carried forward for generations by dedicated railroaders, said Norfolk Southern President and CEO Mark George. As the United States approaches its 250th anniversary, Union Pacific's Big Boy's return to the East on Norfolk Southern rails reflects a shared legacy. The next headline in today's front section of the Democrat Chronicle reads, "Driver Faces Homicide Charge in I-90 Head-On Crash," by Victoria E. Fraley. A 28-year-old man was charged with several felonies, including aggravated vehicular homicide, in a wrong-way crash that killed another driver on Interstate 90 in Albany after allegedly driving drunk. Ibrahim Dai, 28, of Albany, was driving east on the westbound lanes of I-90 near exit 5A when his vehicle crashed head-on into a westbound vehicle just before 2 a.m. Sunday, June 7th, according to New York State Police. The driver of the westbound vehicle was Safwan Muhammad, 20, of Schenectady, troopers said. He died at the scene. Nyayi, who drove the wrong-way eastbound vehicle, suffered serious injuries due to the crash and was taken to Albany Medical Center for treatment, according to the state police. His injuries were severe but were not considered life-threatening, troopers said. Nyayi was charged with the following felonies: 2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide and 1 count each of second-degree manslaughter, first-degree aggravated unlicensed operation of a motor vehicle, and driving while intoxicated. He was also charged with reckless driving, a misdemeanor. Nyayi was arraigned by an Albany City Court judge in his hospital room at Albany Medical Center on Monday, according to state police. He is being held without bail and is in custody of the Albany County Sheriff's Office. Troopers said he will remain hospitalized until medically cleared, at which time he will be moved to the Albany County Correctional Facility. The next headline reads, "Eastview Mall Evacuated Following Bomb Threat," by Victoria E. Fraley. Eastview Mall was evacuated and closed early Monday evening following a bomb threat on the Ontario County property. Ontario County's 911 center received the threat around 6:15 p.m. Monday, June 8th, claiming several bombs were on the property, according to the Ontario County Sheriff's Office. Deputies and mall security officers evacuated the mall property and its surrounding parking lots. Several nearby businesses were also evacuated. Mall officials announced within the hour that the mall would close for the rest of the evening out of an abundance of caution due to the threat. Canine units from the Ontario County and Monroe County Sheriff's Offices investigated at the scene. No explosives were found on the property, deputies said. Deputies continue to investigate the threat. The next follow-on headline reads, "Farmers Markets Open Across Ontario County," by Mike Murphy. The weekend opening of the summer farmers market season brought people and products to downtown Canandaigua. The Canandaigua Farmers Market, which opened June 6th, also showcased all sorts of colors of the season. And if you missed the opening, no worries. The Canandaigua Market will be open Saturdays through October, and markets in Victor and Farmington also opened for the summer last week. Canandaigua Farmers Market. The Canandaigua Farmers Market is open from 9 a.m. to noon Saturdays through October 31st at the Mill Street Pavilion just off Main Street. Victor Farmers Market. The Victor Farmers Market runs from 3 to 6 p.m. Wednesdays through October 29th in the Village Hall parking lot, 60 East Main Street, Victor. Farmington Farmers Market. The Farmington Farmers Market runs from 3 to 6 p.m. Thursdays through September 24th in the Finger Lakes Gaming and Racetrack parking lot, 5857 State Route 96, Farmington. Shortsville, Manchester Market. The Shortsville, Manchester Area Chamber of Commerce offers a monthly farmers market at Reinvention Brewing Company, 9 North Main Street, Manchester. The next market will be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., June 13th, and will feature local produce, baked goods, artisans, the Little Red Wagon food truck, live music from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. by Jeremy Larson, and more. Markets are also planned for July 11th, August 8th, and September 12th. The next headline reads, Sun King moving from Brockport to East Bloomfield by Mike Murphy. The former Crossman Corporation site in East Bloomfield will have a new occupant. Sun King Sustainable Solutions, which is an electronic recycling and refurbishment company, is relocating from its longtime headquarters in Brockport to a larger company-owned facility at 7629 Routes 5 and 20. The new facility, which sits on approximately 50 acres of land, provides a significantly larger footprint and positions Sun King for continued growth, company officials said. The addition of a new shredding line will increase the company's capacity to keep e-waste out of landfills and process electronics on a greater scale, officials noted June 8th in a statement announcing the move. For the businesses and organizations Sun King serves, that means greater capacity for secure data destruction, certified electronics disposition, and sustainable IT asset management, officials said. Free drop-off recycling remains an option for residents and communities across the region. Quote, This new space represents more than just a building. It reflects the growth of our company, the dedication of our team, and our confidence in the future. We're making an investment that will strengthen our business, allow us to continue delivering exceptional service. Company President Adam Shine said in the statement. Sun King plans to host a ribbon cutting and open house in the fall. Crossman's days were numbered in early 2024 after the then 101-year-old company was purchased by Daisy Manufacturing Company, which is headquartered in Rogers, Arkansas. The airgun and accessories manufacturer announced its closure later in the year after having a presence in East Bloomfield since 1971. Sun King refurbishes over 100,000 devices annually and diverts more than 500 million pounds of waste from landfills, company officials said. Next headline reads, New York warns of funeral scams and ghosting by Madison Scott. The New York State Division of Consumer Protection has issued a consumer alert warning New Yorkers about funeral fraud and end-of-life identity theft, which is also known as ghosting. This type of fraud, according to the consumer alert, can include obituary scams, impersonating funeral businesses, or donation websites to steal money from surviving family and friends, and even stealing a dead person's identity to open credit cards, apply for loans, and commit crimes. New York State Office for the Aging Director Greg Olson said that, according to the Consumer Federation of America, scams like these cost consumers $119 billion annually. Quote, The tragic and shocking reality is that scammers will take advantage of every opportunity, including the recent death of a loved one, when a would-be victim may be vulnerable or susceptible to deceptive practices, Olson said. Here are some tips and red flags the New York State Division of Consumer Protection provided to protect yourself and your loved ones from funeral fraud and end-of-life identity theft. Protect yourself from funeral fraud. These are the funeral fraud red flags the New York State Division of Consumer Protection suggests New Yorkers look out for. Fake websites. Scammers can often be pretty tech-savvy and make fake websites look identical to those of legitimate funeral businesses. These websites could also be of stolen or fake obituaries, where scammers will attempt to get people to send them money for flowers, donations, or memorial items that don't exist, the State Division of Consumer Protection said. Make sure you carefully read website URLs and instructions from those planning funeral arrangements. Lack of price transparency. Funeral homes are required to provide price information and keep an updated general price list available to customers under the Federal Trade Commission's funeral rule and New York state law. Do not respond to funeral homes that don't provide an itemized price list or don't answer your pricing questions. Pressure to act immediately. Scammers will often use emotional manipulation and prey on grieving families to quickly send money or personal information. Do not work with any businesses that pressure you into making any financial decisions. No license information. All funeral directors in New York State are required to be licensed by the state's Department of Health. A list of funeral directors with active registrations can be found on the DOH website. Aggressive or deceptive sales tactics. Funeral homes cannot legally require you to buy a casket or urn from them. Do not engage with businesses that pressure you into services or products you don't want, and you should always look for any additional fees that may be included in package deals. Protect loved ones from end-of-life identity theft. Here are the tips the New York State Department of Consumer Protection suggests New Yorkers keep in mind to protect the identity of their loved ones after they die. Brief obituaries. Scammers will often use obituaries to pull information and context clues in an attempt to steal identities. Be cautious about including personal information in obituaries like addresses, birth dates, maiden names, or full names of family members. Look out for unexpected bills or debt collections. Unexpected bills or debt collections could be signs of identity theft, according to the State Division of Consumer Protection. Ensure that any debt owed by a deceased loved one was really theirs, and stay in contact with financial institutions to know the full details of any debt that is owed. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat and Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Notify credit bureaus, government, and banks of a loved one's death. Funeral homes are only required to notify the Social Security Administration of a death. Make sure you notify the State Department of Motor Vehicles, credit bureaus, the IRS, and any banks or financial institutions of a death so they can close that individual's file and protect them from identity fraud. Monitor their credit report. Many scammers will steal the identities of people after death, as they assume no one will monitor their credit report. If a loved one dies, it is important to monitor their credit report to keep track of any new debts or collections which could indicate identity theft. To learn more about funeral fraud, end-of-life identity theft, and other types of scams, visit the New York State Office for Aging's Scam Prevention website. The next headline today in today's front section of the Democrat Chronicle reads, Husband 88 and Wife 77 Killed in Irondequoit Fire by Victoria E. Fraley. Irondequoit police have identified the pair who died Sunday in a house fire in Irondequoit. 2 killed, names released. Clarence DiCarlo, 88, and his wife Irene DiCarlo died as a result of the house fire at 112 Carroll Drive on Sunday morning, said Irondequoit Police Chief Scott Peters. The fire. Firefighters were dispatched to the residence around 7:40 a.m. on Sunday, June 7th, following reports of flames rising from the home. According to the St. Paul Boulevard Fire District, firefighters battled the blaze as heavy flames rose from the house. Clarence and Irene DiCarlo were both found inside their home by fire crews within 10 minutes of the initial fire call. According to fire officials, both died from injuries they suffered due to the extent of the fire. This is a heartbreaking incident for everyone involved, fire officials said in a news release. Our thoughts and prayers are with the victim's family and loved ones during this incredibly difficult time. Cause under investigation. The cause of the fire remains under investigation by Monroe County Fire Bureau, said St. Paul Fire Chief Kenneth Stavelone. The cause of the fire, however, was not considered suspicious, police and fire officials said. Carroll Drive is a residential road just east of Hudson Avenue in Irondequoit. The next headline reads, Views of Drivers, Residents Split on Seneca Avenue Construction by Janae Shields. On Seneca Avenue, a rehabilitation project has been underway, causing lane reductions and detours for residents and commuters. From East Ridge Road to Norton Street, there will be continuous lane closures on Seneca Avenue for road reconstruction and new pedestrian infrastructure. Project features include pavement reconstruction, curbs, new driveway aprons, sidewalk replacement, curb ramp upgrades, street lighting improvements. There will also be new bicycle facilities, potential changes to parking regulations, potential curb modifications including pavement width changes and curb bump outs, traffic signal improvements, and improved transit features. During the project's development stages, residents were invited to a public open house to give input on the project's designs. Some are looking forward to the improvements, while others are concerned about road conditions and daily traffic changes. Residents near Seneca Avenue comment on local traffic changes. A resident on Norton Avenue, Rosie Allen, said, "I think that the construction definitely needs to be done in the area. The Irondequoit does not look like this. There's trees and sidewalks on their roads." And while Allen thinks the project is necessary for the neighborhood, she also thinks the traffic and construction could be more convenient for residents that commute in the morning. "RTS buses are behind and school buses are behind daily," Allen said. "It's a lot of noise between 7 a.m. and noon, and now it's almost afternoon. It's an inconvenience for parents that are commuting their children to and from school also." Helen Barrett Montgomery, School 50, is an elementary school located near the construction site at 301 Seneca Avenue. Paul McCrossan has been a resident near School 50 on Seneca Avenue since 1979 and is currently a school crossing guard. McCrossan has been having a difficult time with the construction and is critical of how the project will improve the neighborhood. "It's a little bit annoying when they start at 7:30 in the morning and you're a senior citizen, but it is what it is," McCrossan said. McCrossan also questions how improvements are prioritized for the neighborhood. Due to the number of unhoused people that frequent the neighborhood, McCrossan questions if the funds from the project will be better spent on other things. "It's a little mind-boggling to me. The money is going to be spent on this bicycle path, and I just don't see a lot of using a bicycle path on Seneca Avenue," said McCrossan. "It's not like you're creating it through Maplewood Park or Seneca Park." Excel Service and Towing sits in the heart of the construction site on the corner of Bastion Street and Seneca Avenue. Barb Chen is the manager at the shop and is looking forward to the rehabilitation and has not experienced any issues with the construction. "Traffic has not been a problem, surprisingly. I thought it would be, especially because folks like to cut between Seneca and Clinton down our street, but we haven't seen any issues at all. Construction will begin with closures going north on Seneca Avenue. Following the construction on one side, the next phase of the project will feature lane closures going south on the avenue. Drivers should anticipate travel delays during this time and are advised to follow posted detours and flaggers near work zones, or seek alternate routes if necessary. Construction activities are weather dependent and subject to change based on conditions." The next headline reads, "Big Tech Warned by British Prime Minister Regarding Underage Nude Images," by Paul Sandel and Sam Tabariti from Reuters. Dateline is London. "Big tech firms operating in Britain must stop children circulating nude images on their phones, or they will face legislation forcing them to do so," Prime Minister Keir Starmer said June 8th. The announcement is Starmer's latest effort to protect children from the harmful impacts of technology. It comes as the Times reported that he is also planning to announce a ban on some social media platforms for those under 16. "Today, I'm calling on tech companies operating in this country to introduce device controls that prevent children from sending and receiving sexually explicit images," Starmer said in a speech at London Tech Week. "This is not an impossible challenge." Under the new plans, firms such as Google and Apple will have to build or activate technical solutions on smartphones and tablets to detect and block nude images for children. Adults would still be able to take, share, or view nude content through an age verification process. If companies did not act within 3 months, the government said it would bring forward legislation to force them to do so, or risk facing fines, or, as a last resort, the threat of criminal liability for bosses. Quote, "We are working constructively with UK partners to find effective, privacy-preserving solutions that deter the spread of harmful content while ensuring a safe digital environment for young people," a Google spokesperson said. Apple did not comment. The company has tools designed to limit children's exposure to explicit content, including a feature that warns when nudity is detected in images sent or received. The British authorities said blocking nudity was key, saying it would disrupt much of the grooming and sextortation model of gangs and predators who share nude images with others or use them to blackmail minors. They argue it is technically achievable and can be done quickly. Currently, a child sex abuse referral is made about every 5 minutes, with 91% of images self-generated. Investigators say they deal with cases where predators groomed victims and encouraged them toward self-harm or suicide, or forced them into sadistic live-streamed content. The government said it wanted to work with industry and that age checks recently introduced by Apple were a significant step forward. But it wanted more action by both Apple and Google to block nudity by default and across third-party apps. Britain has separately been considering whether to ban children from accessing social media in response to widespread concern about its overall safety and the impact it has on mental health. A public consultation on the issue closed in May. Australia last year blocked children from under 16 from platforms including TikTok, Alphabet's YouTube, and Meta's Instagram and Facebook. France, Denmark, and Poland are also considering tightening rules around social media use for children, while Greece in April announced it would ban access to those under the age of 15 starting in January 2027. The next headline reads, Rare showing by Mercury makes 3 for planet parade. Venus, Jupiter start celestial experience with conjunction, by Eric Lagata. It's time for stargazers to start making their plans to see an uncommon spectacle in the night sky, as 3 planets are due for a June celestial get-together. First, it will be Venus and Jupiter meeting up to form what astronomers refer to as a conjunction. Then Mercury will join the party for a multi-day 3-planet parade visible across the United States. The striking cosmic phenomenon presents spectators with a rare opportunity to see multiple planets appear close together in the night sky, at least from Earth's vantage. Venus, which is fresh off a rendezvous with the moon, is a frequent visitor in Earth's night sky, as is Jupiter. But it's not often that Mercury makes an appearance, and it's less common that more than 2 planets appear together at once. In short, you won't want to miss the show. Venus, Jupiter, first to join the party. Venus, one of the brightest objects in the sky, is due to have a cosmic meetup with gas giant Jupiter, the largest planet in our solar system, that should be visible starting June 9th, NASA said in a monthly skywatching guide. Planets in our solar system orbit the sun at varying speeds. Sometimes their orbital paths bring them close together on the same side of the sun. When at least 2 planets, and often also the moon, appear to be close together in the sky, even though they are in reality tens of millions or even billions of miles apart, it's called a conjunction. Mercury will make it a planet parade. Mercury will join the planet party between June 11th and 15th, creating a phenomenon often known colloquially as a planet parade. The planets from our solar system orbit the sun essentially along a line across the sky in a flat disc-shaped plane called the ecliptic. Planet parades are what happens when planets line up along the ecliptic in a straight line and appear to us on Earth to be marching across the night sky, according to NASA. While seeing Jupiter and Venus is not all that noteworthy, Mercury, which takes 88 days to orbit the sun, is an uncommon sight from Earth. How can you see the events? For those in the southern hemisphere, which includes the United States, the northern hemisphere, which includes the United States, spotting the conjunction shouldn't prove too difficult. Simply look west after sunset to see Venus and Jupiter pairing. The same applies later in the week when Mercury forms the parade of planets. Because Mercury will sit lower toward the horizon, you will need a clear view to the west to catch it in the glow of twilight, NASA said in a video. To have the best chance of viewing the planetary alignment, find a spot free of light pollution and a view of the horizon without obstructions like trees or tall buildings. Want to find a dark area near you? Dark Sky International is a U.S. nonprofit that maintains a list of designated dark sky communities around the world, including 176 in the United States. Do you need a telescope? Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter are among the 5 planets in our solar system visible without optical aid, along with Mars and Saturn. Telescopes will certainly enhance the view, but spectators won't need any equipment to spot 3 planets in the pre-dawn sky. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat and Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The next headline in today's front section reads, American Helicopter Crew Rescued. Israeli Strike in Lebanon Deadliest in Months by Phil Stewart and Maya Gabali from Tala Ramadan and Catherine Jackson from Reuters. In a first, a U.S. Navy surface drone found and rescued 2 crew members from a U.S. Army Apache attack helicopter that went down in waters near Oman's coast, the U.S. military told Reuters, and President Donald Trump said the pilots were fine. The U.S. military's Central Command said that the AH-64 Apache went down at around 3 a.m. local time on June 9th near the coast of Oman while patrolling regional waters. CENTCOM said the pilots had been picked up within about 2 hours and were in stable conditions. It gave no reason for the crash. The United States and Iran have been in an uneasy ceasefire with periodic clashes and Iranian drone and missile strikes on U.S. regional allies. Central Command told Reuters the rescue was carried out by a drone but did not specify the model. The 5th Fleet's Task Force 59, which operates in the region, is a dedicated unit for integrating unmanned systems and artificial intelligence with everyday maritime operations. In southern Lebanon, Israel struck the historic port city of Tyre on June 9th, killing at least 8 people in an escalation that adds strain to efforts to broker a peace deal to end the wider war across the Middle East. Israel and Iran halted direct attacks on each other on June 8th after an appeal by President Donald Trump, but Tehran warned it would resume hostilities if Israel continued to attack its ally Hezbollah in Lebanon. The raids were the deadliest on Tyre since fighting erupted in Lebanon in early March, when Hezbollah launched rockets at Israel in support of Tehran, after Israel and the United States began their war against Iran. Israel has issued an evacuation order for the city earlier on June 9th. Residents fled and civil defense teams transported elderly residents into temporary shelters, state media reported. The 8 victims were killed in a single strike on the city's eastern edge, Lebanon's health ministry said. A video verified by Reuters showed debris strewn across a road at the site of the attack. In Tehran, 2 Iranian air defense personnel were to be buried on the afternoon of June 9th after being killed in Israeli strikes the day before, Iran's military said. No deaths were reported in Israel after the Iranian strikes. Oil prices, which had risen on the exchange of fire between Israel and Iran, fell on June 9th after the attacks were paused. Trump told reporters he might have an idea for an Iran deal within a few days without elaborating. The Republican president, struggling with record-low approval ratings as November's midterm elections approach, has often hinted at an imminent deal with Tehran, but none yet has materialized. U.S. and Israeli officials said Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had spoken on June 8th. In an interview with Axios, Trump said he had warned the Israeli leader not to return to war with Iran. I said, Bibi, you better be careful or you will be on your very own soon. Tehran has long said any peace deal with the United States depends in part on an end to fighting in Lebanon, which Israel invaded in March in pursuit of Hezbollah fighters who had fired across the border. In northern Israel on June 9th, Israeli troops operating in the Ramim Ridge area close to Lebanon's border killed 1 person in an incident in which they returned fire, the military said. Israel has never halted its Lebanon campaign, which has killed thousands of people, saying the conflict should be treated separately from any U.S.-Iranian ceasefire. Hezbollah has also continued its attacks. At the same time, Tehran has continued to block most shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, which before the war carried 1/5 of the world's crude oil and liquefied natural gas. Washington has imposed its own blockade of Iranian ports. Trump has said any peace deal must ensure Iran cannot develop a nuclear weapon. Iran's demands include the lifting of international sanctions, the release of billions of dollars in frozen assets, and recognition of its control of the strait. Guterres calls for end to violence. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said on June 9th he was deeply alarmed by the renewed escalation of violence in the Middle East and called on Israel to reopen crossings into the Gaza Strip. Quote, "All attacks must stop immediately. The ceasefires in Lebanon, Iran, and Gaza must be fully respected," he said in a post on X. Guterres also said Israel should open crossings it has closed into Gaza to allow for the flow of humanitarian aid. "I'm also deeply concerned by Israel's decisions to close crossings in Gaza and reiterate my call for the immediate reopening of all crossings to ensure the rapid, safe, and unhindered passage of humanitarian assistance at scale throughout Gaza," he said. A U.S.-brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in place since October includes guarantees of increased aid. Israel and Hamas have repeatedly accused each other of violating the truce. Israeli strikes have killed more than 950 people since the truce, health officials say, while Israel says 4 soldiers were killed by militants during the same period. The next headline reads, Trump nominates Blanche to head DOJ. Acting Attorney General has moved to advance President's priorities, by Aisha Bagchi, USA Today. President Donald Trump nominated his former personal defense lawyer, Todd Blanche, to permanently become Attorney General after weeks in which Blanche, as acting Attorney General, demonstrated a willingness to pursue novel legal strategies and boundary-pushing policies to promote Trump's agenda. Since becoming acting Attorney General in early April, Blanche has overseen a new prosecution from the Justice Department against Trump target former FBI Director James Comey, and an attempt by the Justice Department to create a so-called anti-weaponization fund that could have paid Trump supporters who were convicted of crimes tied to the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Trump said at a private dinner at the White House Rose Garden on June 3rd that he planned to nominate Blanche to the permanent role, which oversees the Justice Department. The White House announced the formal pick in a June 8th news release, saying Blanche's nomination has now been sent to the Senate, which will decide if Blanche is confirmed to that role. Leading Democrats voiced opposition to Blanche's nomination June 8th, but without several Republicans on their side, they won't be able to vote down Blanche's nomination. Todd Blanche is no neutral law enforcement officer. He's never given up his primary role, Donald Trump's chief defender in court, Senate Judiciary Committee Democrats, who are led by Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, posted on social media. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley, who leads Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee, was quick to voice support for Blanche, saying in a June 8th statement that Blanche is well qualified, and has showed his dedication to restoring law and order across the country. Blanche served as Trump's personal defense lawyer in multiple cases, including in Manhattan criminal trial in which Trump was convicted of falsifying business records to cover up a hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Blanche appealed that verdict before being appointed Deputy Attorney General by Trump in 2025. Blanche said the Justice Department wouldn't move forward with the so-called anti-weaponization fund after facing fierce resistance from members of Congress in both parties, who worried it would use taxpayer dollars to reward Trump's allies. Blanche has defended the Justice Department's effort under his leadership to get its latest indictment against Comey after a case brought under Trump's first Attorney General in his administration, Pam Bondi, was dismissed. The new case, which alleges Comey threatened to harm or kill President Donald Trump by posting an image on social media of seashells in the shape of 8647, has sparked widespread criticism, including from conservative legal voices. Comey deleted the post soon after sharing it and said in a new post that he didn't realize some folks associate those numbers with violence, and he took the post down because he opposes violence of any kind. Trump specifically called for Comey, a longtime critic of the president, to be criminally charged in a September 2025 social media post. Comey served as director of the FBI during the first Trump administration before the president fired him in 2017. Blanche also defended the Justice Department seeking charges against the Southern Poverty Law Center, which has angered conservatives in recent years under his leadership. The next headline reads, Pentagon revises faith list after Latter-day Saints backlash, by Carissa Waddick. Dateline is Washington. The Pentagon has revamped a list of religious faiths and traditions it uses to provide services to military members after Mormon Republican lawmakers blasted the agency for not classifying the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as Christian. In a June 8 statement, the agency said that the recent update to its categorization of religious affiliations included redundant and unnecessary labeling. The list reduced the number of recognized faith codes from more than 200 to 30. Of religions included, 21 were labeled Christian. The LDS Church was put in a separate category. Utah Senators Mike Lee and John Curtis and Representative Mike Kennedy, all of whom are Mormon, excoriated the move on social media, calling it deeply offensive. Quote, the Pentagon's decision to list the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints apart from other Christian faiths is wrong and needs to be corrected, Kennedy wrote in a June 7th post. Lee said in a June 8th social media post that he spoke with Donald Trump about concerns with the characterization. Hours after Lee's post, the Pentagon walked back its original decision, saying the mistake had been fixed. However, it is not labeling the LDS Church as Christian. Instead, the agency is removing the Christian labeling from other religions. The updated list of recognized faiths also removed. The updated list of recognized faiths also removed Christian-other. The goal of this effort is to simplify a previously out-of-control belief coding system that had ballooned to over 200 codes, the Pentagon said in a statement. Members of the Latter-day Saints Church affirm they are Christian. However, according to the church's website, some other Christian denomination, including evangelical groups, do not see the LDS Church as Christian and have described it as a cult. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Wednesday, June 10th, 2026 issue of the Democrat and Chronicle. Your reader has been David Frothingham. Thank you for listening.